on, guys. 4 times the lucky. We had to move to my house for better Wi-Fi. Hopefully this is gonna work now. Please let us know how we're doing.
If we're doing.
If we're visible at all. Let's ask our advisor on the other side. So 1 hour later, we could say it's London time instead of Polish time. Let's wait for our community to gather. So we got 3 people watching us. Good afternoon yet again. Okay. I think we're good now. We're not predicting any other technical issues.
Yes, the first like is on.
Yay.
They see
Emil,
Emil, you're a patient man.
Thank you. Okay. Please monitor us. Okay. So once again, for the 4th time, this gets a little bit discouraging, but we're strong.
Hopefully when we pass through this first part, it's going to get easier.
We'll get to the new information. So let me introduce Miss Ola Leszczewicz here, who is today an organizer of the Warsaw Salsa Festival, but she is also the first salsa instructor in Warsaw and in Poland. And I went to her classes when I moved to Warsaw in 2001. And thanks to her work already at that point, I could join a community and meet my business partner and basically enjoy salsa. So she has done a huge amount of work. And I invited her to talk about how salsa has grown, what her experience was, and inspire also our community, you guys. So we met in a little bit controversial situation.
We have, yeah.
How many years ago?
Some 18 probably.
18,
yeah. I remember it was a Monday salsa night that we had every week in a little cafe next to one of the Warsaw theaters. And suddenly there is this young girl coming to me and introducing herself and saying that she came across salsa in Berlin a couple of weeks before that time and that she wants to get involved in all that salsa movement. She wants to be an artist and a teacher and like basically a VIP. And at that time I was a salsa mama, you know, like full of emotions, full of that feeling that I created all that movement at the time. And I was like, what? There is this girl, arrogant, coming to me, and now she's gonna mess up with all that beautiful movement we have here. So
the arrogance of a 19-year-old. Well, I guess modesty comes with age, but that also only tells you how bad I wanted it. That since I saw salsa, it was just.
But it also shows how persistent you were and how you reached all the goals you had at the time. So congratulations.
That's true. Thank you. So Ola, tell us, how has it all started in Warsaw?
Oh, well, back in 1998, a long time ago, there was no salsa movement in Warsaw. There were some little communities, some Colombian people, some Cuban people. They had some Polish friends, but they were gathering in their houses. So officially no classes, no salsa parties. And in 1998, there was a Polish lady from one of the Warsaw cultural centers. She invited a guy from Denmark, a musician, a dancer, to come to Warsaw and to give the first official classes of salsa, and at the same time of tango argentino. So it is actually how the two movements started with him.
And hi Ricardo, hi guys, hi Maciek.
Hi everybody.
Maciek is Ola's life partner, Ricardo Sousa, hello, Kizomba in the house. Well, first we started with salsa.
Yeah. So, and accidentally, this was also the time that I graduated high school. I was a first year's university student, so I was searching for some kind of activity, to have some dancing, to have some new friends. And I came across this little announcement that there was a salsa master from Denmark giving salsa classes. I had no idea what salsa was, but then I went to the first meeting he had before the semester started, and I first heard like one song by Gloria Estefan and one song by Victor Manuel, Apiádate de mí, and I was lost.
That was it.
Yeah, that was it.
Love forever, love at first sight.
True.
So in 1998, that was before Poland entered the European Union. That was before
mobile
YouTube,
phones, before YouTube, before
we
everything.
had access to everything. So that was quite exotic, right?
Of course, and at the time, for example, it was still it wasn't so common to use planes. Whenever you wanted to travel, I remember the first
It's
trip
expensive.
I did, it was all by bus. It was like 30 hours to go to the UK or 60 hours to go to Portugal.
That's true.
And when I look at it back then now, so I cannot really imagine how strong I must have been to do
I
that all.
remember the trip to Holland, and I think in 2000.
The first Salsa Congress.
Yeah, with Annette. Yeah, it
we
was,
used to go.
yeah, we were just talking with Super Mario about Annette's presentation.
Yeah.
That's how we all used to get on the bus, right? And I can't remember how much time it took.
And
20 hours,
we would sleep in the youth hostel in some rooms that hosted 20 people maybe, and just spend all time at the Congress learning new stuff.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
great times. So when you came across salsa, how did it happen that you started to teach salsa? What had to?
Well, after 1 year, that first teacher we had, David, he had to leave because his working visa was over. So he chose 2 of his students that maybe he saw some kind of talent, some kind of feeling. I don't know what it was actually.
You should say hello to David, right?
Yeah, David Mason, if you're watching.
Right, thank you.
You're
David.
the one who's responsible for all that thing right now. So he chose me, and he chose another girl whose name is also Ola, and she's living in Hamburg now. She's also an active salsa teacher right now. And he just asked us if we felt strong enough to continue with this movement he had started and to give the first salsa classes. So we actually started simultaneously in 2 dance schools. After some time, Ola left to Germany, and I stayed, and I went ahead to eventually found my first salsa school.
So this might be interesting for the Warsaw people. Where did you teach at first? By the way, guys, these are 2 Polish ladies talking in Poland.
Yeah, sorry for that.
In English, it's a little bit artificial situation.
Feels awkward, but
but both Ola and I have a huge international community, so we wouldn't want that community to be left out. So here it is, the Polish history in English today.
By the way, if we have any salsa dinosaurs watching this, hello. Because I know that there are still some people in the community that were actually my students back in 1999. The first places was, the most important was Ośrodek Kultury Ochoty, which is a cultural center in Ochota district of Warsaw, because that's where it all started. That's where you went, yeah.
And I remember
on Sundays.
I used to meet Marek, my business partner, there before he even became my business partner. We used to meet in your classes.
True.
Rueda, and it was big.
It was big, and yeah, at that time you didn't have to search for students. Students were searching for you. So whenever I was opening a new salsa class at the time, I had, for example, 85 people coming to my first class. Imagine that, with no promotion, no flyers, no internet, basically nothing.
I mean, there was no Facebook, right? There was no. So did you distribute any flyers, or was it a poster?
Sometimes the dance school was posting maybe 1 or 2 posters, but apart from this, nothing. I just think it was a time where still it was not so accessible as it is now, and to people who came across salsa abroad, they were just searching for some option to learn. So actually they were searching for me. I didn't have to search so much for them.
And the community was probably a lot more thankful at that point.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Because the market wasn't saturated.
That's true. It wasn't so packed as it is now.
So you were running those classes, and for how long? For how long did you teach?
By myself,
yeah.
I mean. The first 3 years, I think.
Hi, Mario. Mario's watching us.
Hey. And the first 3 years, I was just by myself. So it was hard because the moment I started, I maybe knew a few basic steps and a few of the turns. At that time, nobody yet distinguished what were salsa styles. We just were just dancing salsa, having fun. And at the time, it looked more like a very old version of Colombian salsa, just basic steps and some simple turns, and just enjoying the music. And so to learn, every time I wanted to learn something new, I just had to travel abroad, because this was the only option to learn. Fortunately, in other countries, our neighbor countries were much more advanced in the salsa community and the salsa world development. So you went to what places? Mainly to Portugal, but this is because of my personal reasons. Because I'm at the university. This is what I studied. I studied Portuguese and Spanish culture. So Portugal was always the first pick because of the language, because of getting to know the culture better, and at the same time joined us with searching for some new techniques and salsa moves.
Which probably explains the kizomba history later, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, that's true. And another, well, the UK and Holland definitely, because the Harlem Congress you mentioned, it was the first Congress I ever went to, and this is where I met Super Mario actually for the first time. I saw him dancing with Sion Bristol. Sion was was following, and Mario was leading, and this is when I said, "Wow, I want to dance like that."
Wow!
And many of my first inspirations, and this was the first time that I learned the on-two basics, and it changed my salsa life completely as well.
So, on two. So, which year did you transition from on one to on two?
Well, the first time I tried it, I think it was the first or the second Harlem Congress, so it must have been like 201 probably, 202. And
then you kept teaching on one or on two?
No, I kept teaching on one for some time because I didn't feel yet strong enough to teach on two. It was a curious time actually, because imagine that you are for 6 months you are actually teaching a material that nowadays you would use in maybe 1 or 2 classes, and you would be out of ideas. And then you somehow it was exciting to continue with that throughout the whole year, and doing very simple things, doing it very slowly, doing a lot of merengue, doing a lot of giving a lot of this flavor. It was a totally different teaching that we experience nowadays, I think. Now, maybe this is also the reason that this first generation of salseros in Poland is still very orientated to feeling the music, to enjoying the music a bit more than just executing the patterns and just leading complicated stuff.
So there was value in doing less, but more. We practiced more
and more. I think it was also more about socializing, because it was a small community. So basically, everybody knew everybody. If you disappeared for 2 weeks, everybody was wondering, "Where are you? Why are you not coming to the party?" It's something that doesn't happen too often nowadays. And we were having a lot of fun with Rueda, for example, because it's also about socializing, having fun, doing simple moves, but laughing and enjoying. So I think the first craze in Poland about salsa was Rueda de Casino. And I think I remember also the first foreign workshops I ever organized was with Ramon Cabrera, from the Cuban living in Germany. And he gave us a lot of Rueda moves.
Wherever Ramon is, thank you for that.
And it was completely crazy with Rueda de Casino at the time.
Oh, Ricardo says that, Ola, you were the first to teach an on-two workshop in Mushima, in their place.
Ah, I was the first one, really.
In Portugal. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. You invited many instructors to Poland. I remember that I benefited from that, like people like Super Mario.
Yeah.
Where I met Super Mario over Big Mac, which he always tells during the Congress.
Yeah, well, we had Ramon came first to teach Rueda, and it was like a warm-up. And then I had this feeling that, okay, I can travel abroad, but I maybe bring 1 or 2 things, and it's not enough to push this community to grow in terms of the technique and the style of dancing. So I wanted to do it on contrary, to bring somebody to Poland, to give workshops so that many people can get inspired by them. And after that Harlem festival, when I saw Mario dancing with Sion, and in general Mario dancing, so it was my first idea to bring him to Warsaw. And a few weeks ago I found pictures from the workshops, and it's amazing to see. We had, I don't know, 40 people, maybe 50 people, and I think at least half of them nowadays are teachers and owners of the most powerful salsa schools in Poland.
So that must give you a lot of satisfaction that you built it, and you built it in a way that it's stuck with people.
When I look at it now, it gives me this sensation. But I think that at that time I was a youngster. I was 20. I was 19. I was just living with my passion and my dream of dancing salsa that I fell in love with. But I didn't have this strategy of making the community grow. It was happening, but it was somehow happening unconsciously. And I think I was just unaware that I had so much power that I could actually use at the time.
Wow. Who else did you bring? Eric Freeman?
Yeah, Eric Freeman. Well, Susana Montero as well, because Mario's coming a couple of times as well. And there was Norman from Sweden.
Yeah, Henrik.
Yeah.
Henrik was his name, right?
Yeah. So a few people that actually somehow
We have to tag them later. So
added a touch to this, to this community we have.
So then you, what happened later? You ended up setting up a school, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was a Portuguese inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
One of my trips, I spent 3 weeks in Lisbon at that time, and there was this salsa school that I think doesn't exist anymore. I think the name was Salsa Latina, and there was Bibi, that was like this founder, and like I compared myself to her because she was like kind of the salsa mother at the time of salsa in Lisbon, and she had a group of her friends, and they were all teaching in that school. They were that was inspiring for me because they were having many classes. The teachers were mixing among each other, so also a chance to develop your skills and to have some freshness in that classes. And I wanted the same thing. And it was also a time that I already had a group of my advanced students or people that somehow joined me, having learned salsa in other countries as well, and they. We came up with this idea of having a salsa school, and basically that was also the time that you found yours with Marek.
Yes, we set up our brand in 2003.
Yeah, I think it was more or less the same time. The difference was that you were the two managers of the school, which I think, prospectively, it was easier to manage. And in our case, it was a democracy. So one advice: people don't use democracy in salsa schools, especially if you're a young person that's not really self-confident yet. And having some friends that were much older, and I was trusting much more experience. I stepped back a little bit with decisions, and I think this was the reason that the school lasted only a few years, and then it ended because it cannot really function well when you have a bunch of people, everybody with different ideas.
What you're saying is it's a very important leadership concept.
Yeah.
Because I went exactly through the same experience because I was very young, and when I had my team, when Marek and I worked, he was in charge of the school, I was more in charge of the dancing and the dancers, and I was younger than everybody else, and then I was also expected to manage, to have a vision, to do everything right, and I made mistakes on the way, and it was one of the hardest experiences. I'm traumatized until today.
I think we share a lot of common experience here, and in my case, it took me almost 20 years to grow up to this leadership thing, because this was my issue throughout many years, and this was kind of a problem I had. That sometimes I feel that I had ideas and I was expecting some things from people, but on the other hand, I didn't have the knowledge and the strength to be the leader who would actually take them to that point. And this is probably why some conflicts appeared, and why the project ended at some point.
When we're young and when we don't believe in our powers, then we keep consulting people or kind of looking what they think. And then when you have people in the team and everybody has a different direction, I remember I ended up crazy. One person wanted to train in the morning, the other one in the afternoon. One wanted to perform abroad, one wanted to perform in Poland. And then I wanted to meet those interests, but it was impossible because they were contradictory. So then I learned that if I know where I'm going, people will either join or stay behind. But
that's exactly the same thing. At one point, when it comes to salsa, I also had to take some decisions if I want to dance Cuban, if I want to dance on two, because at first I was dancing everything. And I wanted to teach everything because I just wanted to share what I knew with people that, I knew there were not so many instructors in Poland at the time. So I felt that I could teach them something. But then you just have to choose your dream and follow your dream, and in my case it was beyond to dancing and the mambo thing, so this is why I switched to teaching that, which is not so easy in Poland, as you know, because there are people who still find it very difficult and they just give up very easily on that.
Yeah, that's the phenomenon of and then at the same time all the advanced dancers are dancing also, right?
Yes.
But it's hard to maintain big classes. I remember you made a show in 2004, I think. It was our first big international event that we did with Marek. It was called Noche de Salsa.
Yeah.
And we performed with our team with the Black Show, and then you did La Palomilla, was it?
No, we did Lluvia con Nieve.
Okay,
wearing black hats
and we shared one dancer, Piotr Romanov, right?
Yes.
He was in both teams, and it was,
that just shows how many good dancers were there at the time. That actually the competing schools had to share dancers among each other.
Yeah. And we had to negotiate, you know.
Yeah, it was the first, like the first shows on two ever to appear on the Polish salsa
and
scene.
you had Maria in your team.
Yeah.
Maria lives
Maria
in
in Brussels. Maria,
Maria.
maybe you watch it later, but yeah. Hello. Amazing time.
So you had the Salsa Factory, the school, which was more, as you say, a community and a democracy. And then what happened? What happened later?
And then at some point, I think like 3 years later, we just we split in, we can say in two, because there was half of the people in the school that had their own vision of holding the school, and there was another half which was closer to my ideas and closer to Mambo and to learning and traveling and making shows and just going into a certain quality that we felt at the time that was more valuable, probably. And so we split, and together with Maria and Marysia Szumielewicz and Kasia Lorkowska, we founded Montunoje, which is a great time, actually. When I look back at my salsa history and the history of my projects, I think Montuno was the best thing that happened to us at the time.
In which years was Salsa Factory active? In 2003?
Well, Salsa Factory was still active because actually the other people from the school, they decided to continue the work under that name.
So Montuno
it doesn't exist anymore, but Montuno was on from I think 2005 up to 2010, more or less, approximately.
And then you performed together, right, with Maria?
And Kasia. We had some cooperation with Michel Provence, for example, and he used to come to Warsaw to do some Sunday workshops every weekend.
Hi, Mitchell. I remember.
And so we also learned a lot at the time, and I think it gave a lot of flavor to our dancing and basically to all Warsaw.
Yes,
dancers.
I remember because I took that opportunity to train with Mitchell when you invited him. So, sorry. The community feeds community. What can I say? I remember those days. So you're saying that was a good time for you?
That was a good time. But I think all the old people, when they look back at their history, probably they see only the positive things. I'm sure that there were some negatives, but when we are talking about 10 years ago, it all looks so bright right now.
And then what happened after Montunoje?
Well, Maria left to Brussels, and then with Kasia, just our ways also split at some point. We just decided to found our own projects. I think it was also the time that both of us reached that point when our ambition was strong enough to be the master and the director of your own school and not to have anybody mess in.
So guys, just so that you know, Maria left for Brussels and she worked with Talal, teaching regular classes, and Kasia had her own school, but she also worked with me for I think 2 years organizing the Warsaw Salsa Festival 2014-2015. So we're all in one.
It's all in family.
Yeah. So then you set up another school?
Then I set up another school, and that one was just purely my school, and I finally reached that point that I could open my own studio, because before that time I would only be renting some places for hours, which is different because it gives you some sort of financial freedom, but at the same time you don't have a place that you can make it cozy and make it like home and have the people also get related to that place. Well, at the same time, at that moment, I think the salsa market in Poland, the salsa scene in Poland changed a bit, because this is the moment that I think the people in Warsaw stopped being so loyal to only one chosen dance school, and they started going just anywhere. Multi-sport and benefit programs, something that maybe people from abroad don't really know what it is, but it's a killer for all the dance school owners.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it allows students to go basically for free anywhere they want to go.
So guys, the international community, beware of multisport. It's a card that costs people like nothing. Sometimes they get it for free, or sometimes between, I don't know, 20
€40 maybe.
Between 20 and 40 euros, I think, depends on the offer. they get access to all the entertainment in Warsaw: swimming pools, yoga classes, dance
gyms,
classes,
yeah, fitness and dance schools.
And they click the card, and then the owner of the school gets paid a very small amount of money per customer, and it gives the customer complete independence as to where they go, if they come at all to the class. There is no commitment as it used to be when a student used to pay for a monthly course, right? And then it was his responsibility to get to classes. But the school owner could live in peace, cover the cost of the instructor in the room. Because the money was in. Right now, with the multi-sport, it's a constant struggle. You never know if people are going to come to classes or not, because maybe there's traffic, maybe there's rain.
You just you don't have so much motivation, because otherwise you would get your money lost because you paid for the whole month. So you felt you have to go to the class. You felt motivated. And right now it's just, we have a good weather tonight, let's go barbecue instead of dancing. I will go dancing tomorrow to another school.
Because it gives them the freedom. So it's always a hard discussion, because people who are users of multisport and love the card and obviously are very attached to it, and it's understandable, because
for students and for dancers, it's a brilliant idea. For the organizers, for the promoters and school owners, it is a killer, and I think that there are quite a few dance schools that actually bankrupt because of that.
Yeah.
Because with so much competition on the market, you have to be very strong in promotion to keep floating.
And you also don't have influence over your prices, because you get paid by a big company, right? So you cannot raise prices, make promotions. It's a difficult reality. You guys, the international community is free of this. You're so lucky. So, but back to the school. I remember when Marek came up with the idea also to set Salsa Libre as a separate venue. It was also because he was tired of constant negotiations with the culture houses, how long you can stay, or that at 10 o'clock you have to leave immediately because somebody wants to go home and you cannot hold your class longer. That was constant being dependent on another.
I think, I think the difference because our schools, they were born at the same time, but I think there was a different concept behind that, because in your case, as I know, it was as you were talking, it was already orientated business-wise a bit. I mean, it was still sharing the passion, but in a very professional way, and having a studio and just heading towards those business goals. In my case, it was more like, oh my God, there is this group of people that they share the same passion, and they meet together, they create projects together. I was, I've never been a businesswoman actually, and even today, I do a lot of things. I organize events, but still, I don't feel I'm really smart business-wise. So this is why sometimes I take advice from other people. But at that time, it was also the same thing. It was more important, this socializing aspect and sharing, the studying together, traveling together, than probably opening a school that would actually be like a base for many newborn dancers.
So what have these transitions taught you? Like from being an independent instructor to having 1, 2, 3, third school, how has that developed you?
Oh, I'm sure I've been changing a lot throughout the years, but it's 20 years, so it's impossible, because there are also, apart from the dancing, there are another experiences you have in your life that change you. I think throughout these years, I've learned to respect my value and my time, for sure. This is something that I feel right now, that I'm not so easygoing with just taking any offer I get, because sometimes I feel that my family and my free time and my experience is more important than just doing anything for anybody. And I think in the beginning, when you're young and when you're so passionate, you just grab every opportunity to dance. And if somebody offered me, let's go and make a workshops for free in the street tomorrow, I would probably be very keen on going and doing that. So but this is like getting older. It just makes you more aware of your value. And I think many things have changed. I had to learn to accept the criticism and to deal with it, which has always been very hard for me. And still, even doing Warsaw Kizomba Festival, I still have this issue that I receive a lot of critics and I receive a lot of hate. And I've learned to deal with the criticism, but I haven't learned yet to deal with the hate. So this is something that's still ahead of me, and something I still have to
do we ever
practice.
Do we ever learn to deal with it? Okay, before we get to the stage right now, so what happened later? How did you switch to kizomba?
Well, the thing is, I've never switched. You know, it's the people that switched me.
Okay.
Because
okay.
deep inside me, I'm still very much a salsa girl, and I've never really quit being a salsa teacher and salsa dancer. And this is something salsa has always come very naturally for me. But with kizomba, I fell in love with Portugal. Traveling to Portugal, it was very common in kizomba, in salsa parties in Portugal, not to play bachata some years ago. Bachata was not yet really known in Portugal. But instead, they had some kizomba going on because of the relations between Angola and Mozambique and the PALOP countries with Portugal, that were the former colonies. And a lot of people from those countries are living in Portugal. So they would somehow introduce their music and their dances to the salsa and Latin parties. So it was the first country in Europe where actually kizomba ever appeared in the parties. And this is how I met it. I mean, I was going to salsa parties, and then once in a while there was this strange beat beginning. And there was somebody taking me to dance and doing some strange moves that I really enjoyed, but I had no idea what it was. And I was searching for somebody, having this experience with organizing salsa workshops and how it helped the community to grow. I had this idea that instead of traveling to Portugal constantly, I would like the people in Poland to learn a few basics of that dance. So I was searching for 3 years to find a teacher that would actually be willing to come to Warsaw and to teach. And when I found him, he came and he started actually those first workshops and first movement. And after that, the community needed somebody to be here and to give classes. So somehow naturally,
so you used the same formula for.
I used the same formula. I had my experience in salsa a bit. I was a bit more conscious, and I was able to plan some things, which did not happen in salsa a few years before that. But in kizomba, it was already possible. So I had to dedicate myself more to developing kizomba because I knew that at the very beginning you need to give it a push so that the community grows. So this is how I naturally stepped away from salsa for a moment. But the experience shows that if you abandon something for a short time, it's very hard to get back because now many people in Poland know me as a kizomba mother, but very few people actually know me as the person who was introducing salsa in the beginning.
The salsa mother.
Yeah. Besides, introducing salsa was somehow something that came to me. I never planned it. I never wanted it. It's just for somebody who asked me, can you do the classes because you're talented or whatever. I said, yeah, sure, I love it. I can do it. With kizomba, it was more like a conscious decision. It was something that I wanted to happen and that I planned to develop. And it was a different story, I think.
So from that point, you ended up organizing the Warsaw Kizomba Festival for how many years now?
Well, we're gonna host the 10th edition this next year in April. So 10 years, and actually after some Lisbon festivals, I think that ours is the second in the world Kizomba festival, and it comes from my salsa experience because I've been watching salsa movements develop, and I was watching how the first festivals and congresses were showing up, and I was just aware that sooner or later in kizomba somebody would do a festival. So if I didn't do it, it would be somebody else. So I said, why not? Come on, I've been organizing workshops, I've been bringing teachers. Among the kizomba teachers we had, one of the greatest workshops before the Warsaw Kizomba Festival ever started, we had Ricardo and Paula from Afro-Latin, who gave a real boost to the kizomba movement in Poland. And after that weekend, I said, okay, now it's grown so much. I mean, we had so many people in those workshops. We had 3 nights of parties. This is almost a festival. Let's add a few more teachers. Let's add a few more DJs. Let's make it bigger. And this is how the festival was being born.
Yeah, I used the same formula for Zouk. So I guess that works. So I think a lot of people would like to create something new. It was always a good idea to be fresh on the market. So what are the ingredients to bring in a new dance?
In my case, I think it was the support I had from my salsa students. It was a very good time because it was around 2005, I think, that I brought kizomba to Poland. And it was still that time that I had a lot of salsa students, very dedicated, very related to my school, to my projects, to whatever I was doing. And one day I just announced that we're going to have kizomba workshops. And I said, okay, guys, this is some dance you haven't tried yet. This is something new you don't know. But trust me, I've tried it, I love it, and you're going to like it. And I think that having this background in salsa, that helped me to introduce it. Some years later, because there was another dance that I really, really loved at some point, it was samba gafieira. But it was already 5 or 6 years later that I think that it was, well, the market was different and the community was a bit different. And I tried to introduce it the same way and it did not succeed really. So either it was the difficulty of the dance, which is for the guys especially, it's more demanding in terms of leading technique and technicalities basically, or maybe it was the music that's not so catchy as kizomba music. I don't know actually what was the success of bringing kizomba, but I think that first of all it was the strong salsa background. So even though many people today they are against mixing kizomba and salsa at one party, actually myself I also think it's not a very good idea because these are the dances that come from different countries, different cultures, they don't have so much in common. But at the beginning, I'm grateful that we had this strong salsa community who actually was keen to learn new stuff and open for new techniques, because it was thanks to them that we actually had kizomba so strong.
And how is your experience dancing salsa and kizomba similar, and how is it different?
In terms of what?
Just the feeling alone, just dancing with a partner.
Oh, it's very different. For example, I love being a leader in salsa. It's one of the most amazing experiences you can have. And I've always, when I'm teaching salsa, I really do prefer being a leader than the follower, even because I think there are so many tips I can give to the guys that many of them don't use it in social dancing. And I could actually, just improve it a bit. And in kizomba, somehow the nature of the dancing, having the close connection, it's somehow... It's nicer for me. It gives me more pleasure to be a follower, basically. So it's different for me. For me even Cuban salsa and New York style salsa are like two completely different dances. So with some things in common, but still different. So comparing kizomba dancing to salsa dancing probably is like two different worlds.
Okay. So can you say what was your biggest failure over the years?
I think lack of self-confidence, I'd say, and not stepping in front of the other people when it was possible and necessary, probably for me to do. And maybe a bit of this business-wise attitude that I was lacking at some point, and I think probably. There were a few moments in my career that if I had pushed it at that point a bit more consciously in terms of business thinking, maybe it would look a bit different right now. But still, well, I'm happy where I am, so it's not a big problem.
And the biggest successes?
Oh, biggest success. Every happy face dancing in my class was a success. So I know it sounds very simple and naive, but actually I've always felt that teaching is my vocation and it's something that really gave me much joy and excitement. I think I'm very proud of the festival I'm doing. This is something I built from the basics and basically the kizomba community as well, because I feel that I did have a strong influence in starting that movement, although it may look totally unexpectedly different right now. But this is always when you're a parent of something, you cannot expect it to be always the way you imagined at the beginning. I mean, you just give birth to it, but then it grows and follows their own directions. So I think this is what's happening with kizomba right now. I'm not always happy seeing the new styles that are showing up on the stage, but still, I'm just doing my thing. I'm dancing the styles I enjoy. I'm dancing with people I enjoy, and I'm happy this way.
Speaking of children and motherhood, how you're also a mom of a
4-year-old
girl. How has that changed your attitude to the dance world?
I think like in case of every mother, when you become a mom, you change priorities in life always. I think it's impossible for this not to happen. So everything that seemed so important before, it's still important, but you change perspective. I mean, it's
what,
just,
for instance, for an example. I know what you mean.
oh, like appreciating spending time with my family, for example, which is a very simple thing, but still. Before I became a mom and I got into my relationship, I would be going out almost every night, salsa dancing, kizomba dancing, whatever, partying and taking every weekend off to go some festival and learn new stuff. And then it's not only the duties that you start to have, but also it's like you choose sometimes not to leave or not to go out because you want to spend time with them. I think this is an obvious thing. Of course, it takes you back from dancing because the dancing community is sometimes it's tricky. Once you're there, once you're visible, you're recognized, you're famous, you're wanted. But once you disappear for some time, there are new people coming. They don't know you, and like you go to the party, and yeah, exactly. It's like show business. It's a very short career that you can have, and if you just
the more people see you, the more they want you. But if they don't see
this is also a difference that I feel from 20 years ago and now. That as we were talking, that 20 years ago it was the people searching for you, and nowadays you need to search for the people because the people are sitting there with their mobile phones and just waiting for the publicities of your events. And if they don't get them, they will not come. And this is totally the opposite of what was happening those years ago. And also they are more demanding. I think the people back then were more grateful because they knew that they were experiencing something that was not yet so accessible. And now, you open the fridge and you have salsa class for free. And then you go out to the first restaurant and you have a salsa class for free or kizomba class for free. And so many people who want to be the teachers that they actually even don't charge money for that. This is how the market has changed, and it gets more difficult for the dance schools to exist without this strong pushing.
Yeah, the sales skills
publicity.
Are crucial, right? So
yeah.
You don't really, you need to be a dancer, but a salesperson at the same time. I also feel that when we built up the Salsa Libre empire, it was a hungry market. It was just a very, very good moment to create something big. Well, it was easy. It was hard work, but it was easy back then.
At least it was easy to have the people come and get interested in what you're doing. And then it was just your job to give them the quality and the training they really wanted.
So where's your teaching career now?
It's very stable, but it's limited because I also do another things. I work in tourism. I'm a tour guide. I'm a tour leader. I travel a bit abroad with some Polish tourists to show them the world.
You're a tour guide, a tour leader. Okay.
Yeah. And when it comes to teaching, with Maciej, who's my partner, we have some regular classes in the week, but very few of them. I'd wish to have more actually. I'd wish to go back into salsa teaching, and hopefully maybe in a few months' time I will have possibilities to do this.
You're also going to teach at the Warsaw Salsa Festival.
Yeah,
right. We do that every year.
Yeah.
And Maciej is going to DJ.
Yeah, because he's also a kizomba DJ. And we do some workshops. We travel to some with kizomba to some festivals or some foreign workshops, which is also a good. It's a good opportunity also to have a sort of refreshment in that way we live with dancing. Because the community abroad is totally different than the Polish one. In every country it looks different, so it's always some fresh air that we bring. It's hard to explain, but it's just the atmosphere you feel. In some countries you feel the people are more focused on learning the technicalities. In some countries you feel the people are more into animations and they are just having fun, going crazy on the dance floor. Something that we don't really see very often in Poland anymore.
Okay.
I think. And in some countries you feel that the community is, for example, much older than the Polish one. It is also an interesting experience to see like a really mature people going to dance classes and enjoy learning new things. I hope it's the future of our dancing. as well.
Our society is getting older too, so
Yeah.
it will happen. And so are the instructors.
Yeah. I always told myself that when I'm old, I will just switch to tango, which is the elegant and
I keep
calm way of expressing.
And there's West Coast
emotions.
Swing still on my list.
Yeah, me too.
So my kids get big. So, what was the coolest thing about your adventure over the years, over the 20 years?
I think meeting people, making friends. I still have a lot of friendships. I mean, a lot. No, I have a couple of friendships coming from the dancing, but now they exist apart from the dancing, and this is the most precious thing, because I think that, as we were talking, that it's like show business. You have friends. You have friends in the dancing community if you are present. If you disappear, sometimes people don't even realize how happy you are gone. So I'd say it's a bit of shallow relationships, but after sometimes I think that some of the friendships can really get very strong and based and with some fundamentals. So I think that the people that I met and I think the traveling experience, like, there were some crazy adventures. For example, like once being in Portugal, somebody told me, tomorrow there is Los Van Van concert in Spain, in Galicia, and we were in Lisbon, 500 kilometers away from that point. We are going tomorrow by car. Are you joining us? Spontaneously. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And the next day we went to Los Van Van concert, and the following day we came back and we enjoyed, we danced our feet off on that concert. And there were many stories like this. So I have many memories that I can share with my daughter when she's bigger. I think that many crazy adventures of the dancing mother. And I think these are the coolest point of all that.
Well, I wouldn't be
history.
myself if I didn't mention at this point that we're going to have Los Van Van in Warsaw.
I thought you would.
Speaking of the business spirit, that we're hosting on the Friday night of the Warsaw Salsa Festival, Los Van Van in Poland. So you can have a crazy trip from a neighboring country as well to Los Van Van concert. I had the opportunity to see them live in Cuba, and that was my only time. So I'm super excited about that. Tell us one thing people don't know about you.
Oh, wow. That's a hard issue. Come on.
I mean, it's something not too intimate.
I think people know everything about me. No, actually, I think the Kizomba people don't know that I introduced salsa to Poland. Maybe the salsa people don't know that I dance in Kizomba. Many people don't know that I speak Portuguese fluently. I don't know, maybe people don't know that I have a daughter. Maybe the dinosaurs don't know that. I know. Hard question, that is.
Okay. What are your future plans connected to the festival? Where are you heading?
It's not about growing really, because I think that we've reached this amount of people that makes me happy, and that makes me feel that I don't want more, because I don't want it to become a really mass event. We have enough people in Warsaw Kizomba Festival to economically to make it happen, because it's also difficult because of all the costs that those events have.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, but still, it's not about the amount of people, but I would like to keep the quality growing. I mean, I would like to have more of this cultural flavor, and this is my idea for the next year's edition, to have, apart from the dancing part and the parties and the social, to have a bit of this knowledge of what Angolan and basically Palop culture looks like, to have a bit of more experience even with those things, because I think it's important that when you go into dancing a dance that's not yours, that you get to respect it, and to respect it you need to know the roots, you need to go back to the culture, to the realities that people live in, because even in dancing many steps come from everyday things, so some people don't just realize that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. When I went to Cuba, I realized that all the gestures, the Latin behavior, it happens over coffee. It happens while talking. It's not, and then it goes to dance.
Exactly.
A lot of the attitude, but it's in life. It's on the street.
Actually, the most, I think one of the, if you ask me about my dreams about a perfect salsa workshop I would like to go to, it would be a workshop that was actually explained by somebody who knows it from the interior part, to explain like the when all those moves come from, because this is something that has an amazing story. And with Kizomba, it's basically the same. A lot of moves just come from everyday life situations. And I think Warsaw Kizomba Festival also has this kind of atmosphere that people always appreciate. That's what they tell me, and I would like to keep it. And it's not so easy because the world is changing, the community is changing, the people become more demanding, start treating you more as a like vendor versus client. And I would like to keep it like one big dancing family. I know sometimes it's utopia, but hopefully until now, through the 9 editions, I think at some point we've managed to keep it this way, and it would be my dream to keep it like this, despite of the more and more difficult community that's growing right now.
Your festival is more traditional oriented? Oriented.
It's more, I mean, sometimes we introduce some novelties, some classes of the modern styles, but I would like the people to know what Kizomba really is and what Samba is, and because sometimes if you just switch YouTube nowadays, it's very hard to distinguish what's being created by people who know the culture well and what's being created by people who just know many dances and just make a fusion of everything. But this somehow erases the original flavor of the dance.
I think that when the dance gets adopted in Europe, whether it's salsa, kizomba, bachata, it kind of has a life of its own. That roots is one thing, and there's a community that will be interested in the roots, but then it becomes a different dance.
It does, and many people who defend it, they say that it's a natural process for dance to evolve, and I agree with this, that it's a natural thing to evolve, but for me, evolution is something that takes place slowly throughout many years. And for example, watching with salsa, it was still a bit slower. With kizomba and bachata, for example, I think it's happening very quickly, so quickly that the people cannot really see the transition very clearly, and this is why you keep losing this natural flavor. Because with salsa, whether you take the different styles, and at some point we will even have the London style, Israeli style, Italian style, whatever, but it still looks kind of similar. You can still catch the things that they have in common. For example, with kizomba right now, sometimes it's very hard to find those common points when you see two couples dancing, because not even the basic steps is there. So this is, I think this is a red light, the alert that actually dancers should have in their mind. But let's see what happens. I'm almost retired now, so I'm just watching peacefully and enjoying.
Don't do this. Don't retire yet. I think with salsa it was always easier because the crossbody style salsa is also Latin based. So even though it had the European influence, it was always, the music was Puerto Rican, and it didn't drift away so much. It didn't become electronic, right? It was always, played by orchestras. So I think it's not a very good analogy when we say the same thing happened with salsa. Salsa is coming back also to its roots right now. All the style dancers are learning Afro-Cuban dances as basics to understand the movement. So
that's true. That's amazing actually to see how many people go to Afro-Cuban classes right now. And when we tried to introduce those kind of classes 10 years or 12 years ago, there would be nobody. Probably
there was no awareness.
No awareness, no necessity to dive into those things.
Well, I think maybe
this is a positive actually.
Yeah, it will happen with the new dancers also. I feel, for instance, in bachata, when we had Alex and Desiree from the US, and they were teaching the basic step, but the movement in the basic step, the Caribbean movement, the merengue, and I think that supports a lot the modern bachata because it gives the groundedness. So I think these two can coexist. Trying to be positive. Well, is there anything you'd like to add or share to the community? Advice to the young people getting into the markets in their 20s?
Well, advice. I don't want to sound like old lady giving advices, but you know what? I think that the only thing is to never stop learning, because nowadays you have so many possibilities to learn, to watch, to get inspired, and to search for your own style. That I don't know. I think it was much more difficult back those 20 or 18 years ago, because imagine that every new move, every new pattern we brought from holidays was a big wow, and then through the next 3 months everybody was doing just that one move. So imagine how different it was than from what we have right now, with having internet, having YouTube, and having so many. Of course, there are some dangers at the same time, because you have so much mess in the internet. But still, I think that if you never stop learning and never stop being open for getting more knowledge and just searching for that real style of yours, I think it's the most important thing.
So the message is to keep learning.
Yeah.
And to believe
and to appreciate the possibilities that we have nowadays, because it's so different.
And I feel like the message from what you said a lot about believing, having the confidence and sticking to your visions.
I think this point actually is something that's not really missing nowadays, because
like the young people
when you open Facebook or Instagram, you see a lot of self-confidence.
Yeah.
Sometimes a self-confidence that not even has fundamentals in the quality of dancing at some points, but self-confidence is there. So if you get quality and knowledge plus self-confidence, it's a success. It's all you need, basically.
Well, thank you for this beautiful conversation. I'm glad.
Thank you for the invitation. It's been many years of the story we shared, and I think it's the first time that really got to talk about it. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm very flattered. Thank you, because you were my first teacher, and I looked up to you, and it's nice to have you as a host today.
Thank you.
Guys, this was Miss Ola Leszczewicz, the organizer of the Warsaw Kizomba Festival, the salsa mother and kizomba mother in Poland. So this is her. Hope you enjoyed it, and we're going to publish this video later on YouTube. Join us for more interesting conversations. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.